Ah, the heart, that ticking little bomb inside your chest. Everyone walks around like it's fine, like it's whole, but if we cracked it open, peeled back the ribs and peeked inside, oh, the chaos we'd find. Shattered trust, rusted dreams, scars stitched up with silence. Funny how people smile with a war going on beneath their skin, but here's the twist, the delicious irony. They keep running from the one thing that could actually fix it. Not pills, not people, not noise. Something deeper, something higher. Something that doesn't just numb the ache, but rewrites the pain. And yet, they hide it, bury it, laugh it off. They think healing makes them weak. Pain doesn't knock, no. It doesn't wait politely at the door, it doesn't leave a note saying, be back later. It crashes in, uninvited, and oh, it makes itself at home. Feet on your table, hands around your throat, laughs at your plans like they were some pathetic little sketch on a crumpled napkin. You think you're in control? Think again. That thing you felt when you got betrayed, when they turned their backs, that ache? That's pain lighting a cigarette, stretching its legs, getting comfy inside your chest like it's paying rent. But you smile through it, don't you? You lie, not just to others, but to yourself. I'm fine, I'll get over it. It's just a phase, cute, real cute. The mask you wear is cracking and you know it. Still, you keep gluing it together with fake laughs and even faker hope, pretending not to bleed when the cut's wide open. And you run. Oh, how you run. From conversations, from truth, from mirrors. Especially mirrors. You avoid your own reflection like it holds a gun to your head. Maybe it does. Maybe your own eyes scare you more than the world ever could. Because deep down you know, behind the filters and the forced calm, something's broken. Something important. Something fragile that shattered when you weren't even looking. But you don't have time to fix it, do you? Gotta keep moving, gotta post, gotta smile, gotta prove to people who don't care that you're okay. Yeah, that's what matters now, isn't it? But what if I told you pain has a purpose? What if it isn't the villain in your story, but the teacher, the mentor dressed in darkness? Yeah, pain's ugly, but it's honest. It doesn't sugarcoat, doesn't flatter. It tells you where it hurts and dares you to listen. Most don't. Most run to the numbing, scrolling, drinking, distractions with pretty colors and empty calories. But none of that touches the root, does it? The real damage. The quiet scream inside you, the one that echoes at 2 a.m. when the world sleeps and your thoughts start sharpening their knives again. But here's where it gets interesting. Because while pain kicks down doors, healing doesn't. Healing waits. It doesn't scream, it whispers. While pain punches, healing offers a hand. And guess what? Most people miss it. Because they're too busy dressing their wounds with noise. Too busy covering their cracks with glitter. Healing, real healing, it asks for something you've forgotten how to give. Trust, surrender, faith. Not in people, people disappoint. Not in yourself. You've let yourself down too many times, haven't you? No, this is something else. This is about something bigger than all of this madness. See, there's a kind of restoration that doesn't come from therapy sessions or playlists or vacation selfies. There's a voice that speaks softer than your demons, but stronger than their lies. But to hear it, oh, to hear it, you have to be still. And you hate being still, don't you? Because stillness means you might feel it again. The ache, the loss, the guilt, the shame, But maybe that's the door. Maybe pain was never the end. Maybe it was the invitation. A twisted, brutal, beautiful invitation to finally let go of control, of pretending, of fixing yourself by yourself. Because let's be honest, if you could have fixed it, wouldn't it be fixed by now? So you stand there, broken bones behind that designer outfit, shattered soul under your charming mask, and you've tried everything but this, everything but real surrender, everything but lifting your heart like a white flag, not to the world, not to people, but to something you can't see, but somehow feel. Yeah, that pull, that weight, that whisper saying, you don't have to carry this anymore. But you hesitate, don't you? Because what if you look weak? What if you admit you're not okay? Then what? Then maybe, just maybe, something real starts. And if it does, it won't be loud. It won't be viral. It won't impress your feed. It'll be quiet, like a breath after drowning. Like warmth after winter, like peace in the middle of a war. Not outside, inside. The kind of peace that doesn't need explanations or approval or applause. The kind that says, I see you. The kind that doesn't care about your status, your mess, your records of mistakes. The kind that walks in slowly, steps over the rubble, and sits beside the ruins without judging the collapse. And you realize maybe the pain was necessary. Not because you deserved it, no. But because the version of you that's rising now couldn't have been born without it. You ever notice how people walk around pretending they're fine, like little wind-up toys in a broken dollhouse? Numb smiles, hollow greetings, routines stitched together with caffeine and denial. They say I'm good while their chest is on fire, their mind a war zone. Oh, but they've learned how to camouflage, how to play dress up with their emotions. And you got wounds nobody sees, fears nobody hears, and doubts that scream louder than applause ever could. And yet you pretend. Pretending is easier than facing it. Pretending buys you time, but time's a thief, darling. It doesn't just steal your youth, it robs you of clarity, of chances, of truth. See, people don't really want healing, not at first. They want relief. They want the pain to vanish without digging up the roots. They want to be patched up, not transformed. Because transformation hurts. Oh, it's brutal. You think the pain of staying the same is bad? Try growing. Try peeling back the layers and facing what's underneath. It's not pretty, it's not filtered, and it definitely doesn't get you likes, but it's real. And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because real means vulnerable. Real means you drop the mask. Real means someone might see you, and worse, they might not like what they see. You know what the problem is? People keep searching for peace in places built on chaos. They go to the same vices expecting different outcomes, round and round on the carousel of coping mechanisms. You think a new city, a new job, a new body, a new relationship will fix you, but you bring the same broken soul into every scenario. You drag your ghosts like luggage and wonder why every place starts to feel like the last. The outside changes, sure, but the storm inside, that never stops. Unless you stop, unless you listen, unless you get quiet enough to hear what's been calling you since the first time you broke. It's not noise that saves you. It's silence. And oh, how you hate the silence, because in silence the lies die. In silence the truth rises. The truth that you're tired, Tired of pretending, tired of pleasing, tired of pushing through when all you want to do is collapse. But collapsing isn't weakness. No. Collapsing is honesty. Collapsing is the body's way of saying, I can't carry this anymore. And maybe that's not failure. Maybe that's the beginning of surrender. Not giving up, giving in to something stronger, to something greater, to something that doesn't require you to have it all together. There's something ancient in the way healing moves. It doesn't come crashing in like a rescue team. It sneaks in, quiet, gentle. Sometimes it starts with a tear you didn't expect, a conversation you didn't plan, a silence that felt like safety instead of punishment. That's how it starts. Not with thunder, with whispers. But oh, those whispers are holy. Those whispers know the language of your wounds. They don't shame you for bleeding. They sit with you. They remind you that broken things aren't worthless. There's stories waiting to be rewritten. But not by you. No, you've tried that already, haven't you? You wrote chapters with pain as the pen and fear as the ink. And now you're here, looking at a mess and calling it normal. But what if I told you it was never your job to fix it? What if I told you healing wasn't something you build, but something you receive? Oh, now that messes with your pride, because you like control. You like being the strong one, the dependable one, the unshaken one. But all that strength has become your cage, hasn't it? You've built walls so high, even you can't breathe inside. You've buried your heart under performance and expectations, and now you can't even hear its pulse. But someone can. Someone sees through it. All of it. Not just the brokenness, but the beauty beneath it. Not just the pain, but the potential still pulsing underneath. And that someone doesn't want your perfection. They want your permission to step in, to unravel, to restore. But you have to choose. You have to stop running. You have to stop numbing. You have to stop waiting for a sign that won't come until you let go. Let go of the fear that's ruled your decisions. Let go of the guilt that clings like a second skin. Let go of the need to be fine when you're anything but. Because only when your hands are empty can you receive what's always been reaching for you. And only when your defenses are down can something holy enter and start rewriting the narrative that's been suffocating you from the inside out. You think the heart breaks once, and that's it? A clean snap, one shatter, done? No, it breaks again, and again, and again. Not like glass. No, not that dramatic. It's quieter, more cruel, like a door that almost closes but never fully does. You hear it creak every night. You feel the cold air slipping in, but you leave it, because fixing it means touching it, and touching it means remembering what made it fall apart in the first place. And you've done a fantastic job pretending it never happened. Put on your face, play your role, blend in. You even smile sometimes. But you and I both know that smile is a mask, stitched together with fragments of the person you used to be before the world started peeling off pieces. Pain isn't just what happens to you, it's what you carry after. It follows you like a stray shadow, doesn't it? Shows up in your words, in your silence, in how you flinch when someone gets too close. It's in the way you laugh, too loud or too soft, never quite honest. It's in the way you love people while secretly waiting for them to leave. You don't say it, but you brace for betrayal like it's your birthright. You expect disappointment like it's dessert. And when people tell you to have faith, it makes you want to scream, doesn't it? Because faith is hard to hold when all you've held is loss. But let's talk about that pain. Let's drag it out into the light, not to fix it, not yet, just to face it, because as long as it's hiding, it controls you. As long as it's buried, it's breeding new monsters in the basement of your soul. And monsters don't go away when you ignore them. They grow louder, meaner, smarter. They learn to speak your language. They know exactly when to whisper that you're unworthy, unlovable, unseen, and you believe them because they sound just like you. That's the trick. The lies don't show up in someone else's voice. They wear your own tone, your own rhythm, your own vocabulary. But what if the pain wasn't trying to destroy you? What if it was a signal, a flare in the dark, a warning that you've been carrying too much for too long and calling it strength because you're tired? Not just sleepy tired, soul tired, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't touch. You've been trying to outrun memories that live in your bones, trying to outmile grief that's still dripping from your fingertip. You've become a master of distraction. You know every shortcut to numbness, every detour around vulnerability. But that's not living. That's surviving. And surviving has an expiration date. You want freedom? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You have to feel it. All of it, not just the parts you post about. The ugly, the rage, the sorrow that makes no sound but still drowns you. You've got to sit with it until it stops being a monster and starts being a mirror. Because pain, real pain, doesn't just show you what hurt you. It shows you what matters. It shows you what you lost and what you're still capable of finding if you stop running and start listening. The cracks in you, they're not defects. They're entrances for light, for grace, for something divine, but you have to choose to open them. That's the catch. No one can do it for you. No rescue is coming if you don't scream. No healing happens if you don't bleed. You have to break the silence you built around your heart like a fortress, because while it kept you safe, it also kept you isolated. You've guarded your pain so well, you forgot how to be seen. But what if being seen, really seen, was the only way to heal? What if the very thing you're most afraid of, being exposed, is the very thing that sets you free? It's scary. It is the very thing that sets you free. You've been begging for peace, but peace won't fight you. It waits for you to surrender, for you to stop hiding, for you to stop pretending that this ache is normal. It's not normal. It's a wound, and wounds speak. Yours has been screaming. You just stopped listening because the volume scared you. But ignoring it won't make it go away. It just grows claws in the dark. You don't tame that kind of beast by silence. You face it. You name it. And then you let something bigger hold it with you, because you were never meant to carry all this alone. You know, it's funny. People walk around like nothing's wrong, while everything inside them is burning, smiling with teeth clenched so tight they could bite through steel. They sit in rooms full of people, laughing, nodding, playing the game, but inside, it's chaos. That beautiful, delicious chaos that no one wants to admit lives in them. Because if they said it out loud, the whole illusion crumbled. And people don't like mess. No, no, no. They like tidy pain, digestible trauma, a version of you that can bleed quietly without getting blood on the floor. But pain isn't polite. It doesn't knock. It doesn't whisper. It kicks the door down and dares you to say its name. You know what your heart does when no one's looking? It rewinds over and over to the moment, the crack, the silence, the betrayal. It replays every word, every face, every time you said, "I'm fine," when you were anything but. And while you sleep, it doesn't. While you distract, it remembers. It stores everything you try to forget in the attic of your soul, and the dust up there is thick. But here's the part no one tells you. Pain doesn't forget. It doesn't disappear because you're busy. It waits. Oh, it waits. And when you're still enough, quiet enough, it shows up again in full color, full volume, full rage. They told you to pray, so you did. But you didn't really speak. You whispered through your teeth, through the filter of what you should say, not what you needed to scream. Because screaming is messy, and God might not like messy, right? You were taught that prayer should be proper, that healing comes through structure, that if you just behave, blessings will follow. But what if healing isn't polite? What if the cure comes wrapped in chaos? What if you don't get better by pretending it never hurt, but by finally admitting that it did, and it still does? Let's stop pretending this world doesn't break people. You're broken. You know it. I know it. You've been dropped so many times you've stopped expecting to be held. And now you walk like nothing touches you, like nothing moves you. But that's a lie. You're sensitive, excruciatingly so. You just learned to hide it behind sarcasm, behind ambition, behind smiles that hurt your face. And when night falls and the performance is over, your soul groans from the weight of all the things you didn't say, all the tears you swallowed, all the prayers you buried under guilt and shame and maybe later. But the truth is this: healing doesn't arrive when everything's perfect. It crashes in when everything's falling apart. It slips through the cracks in your voice, in your memories, in your trust. You keep waiting for the pain to pass so you can feel God. But what if He's been in the pain all along? Not above it, not beyond it, in it. In the ache, in the silence, in the nights you curse the sky and beg for a sign. You think that was weakness. Maybe that was the beginning of real strength, the moment you stopped pretending and started breaking. Not breaking down, breaking open. You don't heal by running. You don't heal by numbing. You heal by collapsing into the arms of something bigger than the mess. And I know you've tried. Oh, have you tried? You gave pieces of yourself to people hoping they'd fix what they didn't break. You performed like your worth was up for auction, and every time you were left, it confirmed what you feared, that maybe you're just too much, or maybe not enough. So you shrink. You go quiet. You convince yourself this ache is permanent, that this pain is the price of existence. But that's a lie. A clever one, a seductive one, but still a lie. Because the moment you let go of the act, the second you stop performing, the healing can begin. Real healing. Not the kind that covers wounds with glitter and calls it growth. The kind that rips the rot out by the root. The kind that hurts first, then frees. And yes, it's terrifying, of course it is. You've built your identity on holding it together. But let me ask you, how's that working for you? Still waking up tired? Still feeling hollow in rooms full of people? Still hearing echoes of the things they said when they left? When they gave up on you? When you gave up on yourself? You don't have to keep hiding. You don't have to keep pretending that prayer is a ritual instead of a lifeline. It doesn't have to be eloquent, it doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to be real and raw and honest enough to scare you. Because that's where healing begins, in the places you've never let anyone touch, in the prayers that don't sound like songs but screams, in the surrender that looks like falling apart that is really just falling into something that can finally carry you. They always say time heals all wounds, but I've seen people walking around with scars older than their kids. You think time is some kind of doctor? Time doesn't heal, it hides, it buries, it lets dust settle over memories you swore you'd never revisit. You call that healing? That's denial dressed up in a suit. That's putting perfume on a corpse and pretending it's dancing. Healing doesn't happen because the clock ticks. It happens when you rip the mask off the thing you've been too scared to look at. It happens when the pain finally screams louder than your fear of dealing with it. You've been walking through life like you're fine, haven't you? Shoulders back, eyes forward, jaw tight. People say you're strong, they admire you, but they don't see the tremble in your hands when no one's watching. They don't hear the silence in your room when the show's over. They only see the act. And oh, what a performance it's been. You deserve an award for pretending, for smiling through the storm, for pretending the fire in your chest is just heartburn and not heartbreak. But deep down, you know the truth. You know what it's like to be the one who holds everyone else together while falling apart in secret. You've been trying to stay busy so you don't feel. You've built schedules like fortresses, meetings, deadlines, distractions, your armor. But pain doesn't care about your calendar. It'll show up at the worst moment, sit on your chest at 3 a.m. and whisper every lie you've ever believed about yourself. It knows where the cracks are, and it doesn't knock. It just slips in. And that's when the real fight starts. Not with the world, but with yourself. Because healing isn't about fixing the world around you. It's about facing the war inside you. The one you've ignored for years. The one you thought you buried, but never really did. The ones who hurt you, they moved on, didn't they? They forgot the things they said, the damage they did. They sleep easy while you lie awake, tracing the shape of every scar. You thought time would make you forget, but instead it just made you better at pretending. And now, here you are, carrying weight you never asked for, reliving memories that should have died long ago. You weren't supposed to survive that, but you did, barely. And now you've got this ache inside you that won't quit, like a song stuck on repeat. And you're tired, so tired, but no one knows, because you keep saying, "I'm good," with a smile that's starting to crack. You've tried everything, books, affirmations, talking to people who say, "Just let it go." But healing isn't a slogan. It's not something you pick off a shelf and slap on your soul. Healing is ugly. It's loud. It's crying until your chest hurts and you forget what day it is. It's screaming in your car because you can't scream in public. It's peeling off layers of yourself you thought were permanent just to realize they were only masks. And when you finally sit with the pain, really sit with it, it doesn't whisper, it roars. And it hurts. Oh, it hurts. But underneath that hurt is something honest, something real, something you buried to survive. There's something strange about the way pain teaches us. It doesn't use words, it uses silence. It doesn't give lectures, it gives flashbacks. You don't graduate from it, you crawl out of it, dragging your truth behind you like a wounded soldier. And maybe that's what makes healing so hard. It's not a clean process. There's no ceremony, no applause, just you in the dark figuring out how to breathe again, how to trust again, how to let yourself feel without falling apart. And the worst part, nobody can do it for you. They can hold your hand, but they can't walk you through the fire. You've learned how to smile without joy, how to laugh without light. You've made sadness look fashionable. And that's the problem. You've become so good at surviving that you forgot how to live. But surviving isn't living, it's coping. It's managing the pain instead of confronting it. And you've done that for too long. You've put your healing on hold, thinking maybe it'll happen later. But later never comes. It's always now, always this moment, always this decision to keep hiding or to finally let yourself feel the weight of everything you've been avoiding. It's not about being strong anymore. You've done strong. You've done quiet suffering. Now it's about being honest. It's about being brave enough to break in the open. Because broken doesn't mean useless. It means real. It means human. And in a world that wants perfection, being human is the most radical thing you can be. People love control. They worship it, as if by tightening their grip on life, everything chaotic will magically fall in line. But control is a lie, a sweet little bedtime story for adults scared of the dark. You plan your day, map your future, calculate every move like a game of chess. But guess what? Life doesn't play by your rules. Life flips the board when you're about to win. It laughs when your blueprint burns. You can try to plan all you want, dress up your schedule in perfection, but chaos doesn't RSVP. It crashes the party uninvited and takes your peace like a thief in broad daylight. That moment when things start slipping, you know it. You've felt it. The tremble in your voice, the silence after the storm, the plan you crafted with trembling fingers turning to dust right in front of you. And what do people say? Just stay positive. Positive? You want me to smile while the building burns? You want me to be calm while my soul's on fire? No. There's no strength in pretending it's fine when it's not. There's no wisdom in faking serenity while your whole world spins out of orbit. That's not peace. That's delusion. You've tried controlling people too, haven't you? Their opinions, their reactions, their love. You bend, you shrink, you twist yourself into versions they'll accept, thinking maybe if you're perfect enough, they'll stay. But they don't. Because people don't stay for perfection. They stay for truth. They stay when you bleed honestly, when you crack open your chest and show them the chaos inside. But you've been scared to do that. You've been playing the role they wrote for you. Polished, smiling, predictable, but inside you're screaming, and no one hears it because you've built the silence too well. Letting go of control doesn't mean giving up. That's the mistake. That's what they don't tell you. They think surrender is weakness, but it's not. It's freedom. It's opening your hands and realizing you were never holding anything in the first place. You were clenching air, suffocating yourself for a false sense of order. Real peace doesn't come from control. It comes from chaos accepted, from storms danced in, not avoided. You want to be free? Then stop trying to own what was never yours to begin with. You've been trying to fix things that aren't your fault. You carry guilt like it's a job. The way they left, the way they changed, the way the world turned its back on you, none of it was your doing. But you still carry it, like some martyr waiting for applause. There's no medal for self-destruction, no reward for bleeding quietly. And yet, here you are, thinking maybe if you try a little harder, control a little tighter, the pieces will come back together. But maybe the pieces weren't meant to. Maybe the breaking was the point. Maybe the mess is sacred. You look in the mirror and see someone exhausted, not physically, soul tired, because keeping control is a full-time job and you're the only employee. You don't trust anyone to take the wheel, not even yourself. You think if you loosen the grip, everything will collapse. But here's the truth. Things are already collapsing. They always were. You just didn't want to admit it. You were too busy pretending the cracks were character. Too busy convincing everyone you're fine while your insides scream for release. It's not your fault. They trained you this way. Smile, obey, keep it together. But no one ever taught you how to fall apart with grace. So you build walls, not to keep people out, but to keep your own truth in. You're scared of what might happen if you let it all out, if you cried like you really want to, if you screamed like you've been dying to. But what if falling apart is the first step to healing? What if the collapse isn't the end but the beginning? What if the wreckage is where you meet yourself, finally, without all the mass? You keep praying for peace but living like war. You want calm but you keep feeding your chaos with control. You say you trust, but you build escape routes in every direction. And still, deep down, you know you can't keep this up. You know something's got to give. You just hope it's not you. But maybe it should be. Maybe the version of you that thinks control equals safety deserves to die. Maybe the rebirth starts when you drop the act and admit you were never in charge in the first place. You've been asking for signs, looking for clues, waiting for a signal. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the moment where you drop the rope, step back from the battlefield and let life do what it's going to do anyway. Maybe surrender is the revolution you've been avoiding. Maybe losing control is the only way to finally feel alive. They don't teach you this in school, do they? They teach you to read, to write, to follow the rules, walk in line, obey the bell. But they never teach you how to bleed in silence. They never prepare you for the kind of pain that doesn't show up in textbooks, the kind that hides in the back of your throat when you're trying to smile in front of people who wouldn't notice if your soul was on fire. See, the most dangerous kind of pain isn't the one that shouts. It's the one that whispers. God, yay. The kind that walks beside you like a shadow, silent, loyal, and hungry. The rich give trust. Ha, funny word, isn't it? People throw it around like candy. Trust me. Trust the plan. Trust the process. But deep down, nobody really does. Not fully. Not when things start falling apart. Not when the walls close in. Not when life punches you in the teeth and whispers, "Where's your God now?" But here's the twist. There's this line, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart." All your heart. Not the sanitized version, not the Sunday morning smile kind of trust. I'm talking raw, shaking, blood under the nails trust. The kind you cling to when nothing makes sense, when your logic's gone mute. when your plans are in pieces and your prayers sound more like screams. Real trust begins where logic ends. That's the punchline nobody wants to admit. As long as everything makes sense, as long as the puzzle pieces fit and the numbers add up and the path is nicely paved with glowing signs and smiling faces, people say they trust. But that's not trust. That's math. That's management. That's just control dressed up in a church suit. Real trust, oh no, that begins after the map catches fire, after the plan collapses, after life looks you dead in the eyes and says, figure this out without instructions. People say trust in the Lord with all your heart like it's a greeting card, like it's a warm little blanket they can wrap around themselves when things get chilly. But try trusting when nothing works. When your prayers feel like echoes in an empty room. When every logical reason to keep going has packed up and left. That's where trust starts. That's the doorway. Not the easy part, the edge, the fall, the silence that comes right before the scream. Because here's the truth. They don't teach this part. Trust isn't clean. It's not elegant or poetic or neat. It's messy. It's ugly. Standing in the middle of a storm with your arms wide open, bleeding hope and shouting into the dark, I believe, even when everything in you is cracking. It's choosing to lean on something you can't touch, can't measure, can't fully understand, while the rest of the world tells you you're insane. See, logic has rules. Logic says, wait for proof. Logic says, don't move until you see the path. But trust? Trust says step anyway. Trust says close your eyes and fall forward. And that's what freaks people out, because they love control. Oh, do they love it. They build entire lives around it. Spreadsheets, backup plans, insurances, escape routes. Anything to avoid the feeling of not knowing, but trust dares you to not know, to jump, to risk, to believe in something that doesn't play by your rules. And that's when the panic sets in, because logic is predictable, trust isn't. You can't calculate trust. You can't pin it down or box it up or wrap it in guarantees. You just give it with all your heart. Not half, not the safe part, not the Sunday morning version. All of it. The scared parts, the broken parts, the parts still screaming. And that's the deal, isn't it? That's the joke. Real trust requires you to hand over the thing you're most terrified to let go of. Control. People nod when you say trust in the Lord. They smile, they hum, they maybe even say amen, but catch them in the middle of collapse, when their logic's run out, when the system's failed, when the floor's been ripped out, and you'll see what they really believe. That's the test. That's the fire. That's where trust walks in, grinning, and asks, still with me? And you either say yes, or you don't. But don't confuse the silence with absence. That's another trick logic plays. If I don't hear anything, if I don't see results, if I don't feel goosebumps, maybe he's not there. Oh no, darling. That silence, that's where trust lives. That's where it grows teeth. That's where it stops being a feeling and becomes a decision. Because trust isn't about proof. It's about posture. It's about surrender, the spine straightening even when the world bends, the breath held in defiance of fear, the whisper that says, even now, even this, I still believe. And no, it won't make sense. That's the whole point. If it did, you wouldn't need trust. You'd just follow the instructions like a recipe. But this isn't a recipe. This is war. This is chaos. This is falling through the cracks and still believing the ground will find you. This is the kind of trust that makes the logical part of your brain scream while your soul nods quietly, like it knew the whole time. Because real trust doesn't wait for things to be safe. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't need guarantees. It needs heart. All of it. Even the parts that are breaking. Especially the parts that are breaking. Faith isn't soft. No. It's not some delicate little candle you light when things get cozy. It's not a lullaby you hum to calm the nerves. Faith, real faith, the kind that actually means something, that's survival. That's war paint on your face. That's crawling through fire with blood on your knuckles whispering, I still trust. People want to paint it pretty, robes, hymns, stained glass windows, and gentle smiles. But strip all that away, and what's left? Grit, teeth, raw belief when everything's screaming, give up. See, people love the idea of faith when it feels good, when the answers come quickly, when the doors open smoothly, when prayers feel like wishes granted on schedule. That kind of faith's easy. That's the cotton candy version. But what about when it's not pretty? What about when nothing works, when the sky stays silent, when every step forward feels like dragging chains through mud? That's when faith shows its real face. Not soft, not sweet, sharp, wild, alive. Faith doesn't show up with a smile. It shows up when your back's against the wall, when the floor's vanished, when the whole world is laughing at you for still believing. It's the decision to keep walking even though the lights are out and you're pretty sure something's breathing in the dark ahead. That's not cute. That's not comforting. That's insane. And that's why it works. Because faith doesn't make sense. It was never meant to make sense. It was meant to break the rules of reason. You think having faith is weak? Try having faith when your prayers go unanswered for years. Try holding on when you've got nothing left to hold. Try believing in a plan when your life looks like a disaster movie on repeat. That's not weakness. That's a level of strength logic can't explain. Faith isn't soft. It's survival in chaos. It's laughing through tears. It's standing in the ruins of your own expectations and still choosing to believe that something beautiful is coming next. People talk about faith like it's an accessory, something you wear on Sundays. But real faith doesn't live in comfort. It lives in chaos. It grows in the wreckage. It feeds on desperation. It thrives in the silence. It's that last thread you cling to when you're dangling over the edge and everyone's telling you to let go. And you almost do. Almost. But something in you, that fire that refuses to die, says no, not yet. Not like this. Faith looks ridiculous until it works. And even then, people still won't understand it. They'll say it was luck. They'll say you were just strong. But deep down, you know. You know what it took to keep going when every cell in your body wanted to quit. When you smiled with tears in your eyes and said, "I trust," even though you didn't feel it. That's survival. That's steel in your spine. That's faith with teeth. It doesn't wait for proof. It doesn't ask for signs. It keeps going because it knows. Even if everything says otherwise, even if your own thoughts betray you, faith is louder than doubt. Not because it yells, but because it refuses to leave. It sits with you in the dark. It walks with you through hell. It looks at the storm and doesn't flinch. Not because it isn't scared, but because it remembers who's in control, even when everything seems out of control. You ever seen someone with real faith? Not the polished kind, the kind that's been through the fire. They've got that look in their eye, that strange, calm madness. Like they've faced the storm, danced with the devil, and still walked out whispering, "I believe." That's not softness. That's power. That's danger. Because you can't break someone who's already broken and still chose to trust. And no, it doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes it comes with silence, with waiting, with nothing but that invisible thread pulling you forward, and you hold it, even when it burns, even when it cuts, because deep down your spirit knows something your brain never will. Faith isn't some fragile fantasy, it's survival. And sometimes it's the only thing keeping your heart from going completely numb. Trusting fully means surrendering control. And that's where people start to sweat. They love the word trust, sure, sounds noble, sounds spiritual, sounds like something you put in cursive on a coffee mug. But when it comes time to actually let go of the plan, of the timeline, of the illusion that they've got it all figured out, they grip the wheel so tight their knuckles turn white. Because giving up control, that's not just uncomfortable, that's terrifying. See, everybody wants to trust until it requires them to release. They want to keep one hand on the steering wheel while the other one holds a prayer. They want to say, "Lord, take the lead," but still carry a backup plan, a safety net, an escape hatch, just in case. Just in case what? Just in case he doesn't show up? Just in case he's not who he says he is? Or maybe just in case he leads you somewhere you didn't approve of? They say, "Thy will be done," like it's a lullaby. But when that will starts pulling them into the unknown, into the chaos, into the silence where things stop making sense, that's when the fight begins. The panic, the resistance, the bargaining, that desperate little voice that says, "Can we just go back to the part where I was in charge?" But trust doesn't work like that, not the real kind. Real trust demands that you let go of the blueprint, that you stop pretending you know how this all should go. Control is an addiction, a drug. It gives people the illusion of safety. They measure their worth in plans, calendars, 10-year goals, everything neat, everything logical. But faith, real faith, laughs at that. It burns the map. It reroutes the journey. It says, "Follow me," and doesn't hand you directions. Just a whisper, just a pull, just enough light for the next step and no more. And that's what drives people mad, because they want to see, they want to know, they want to guarantee before they jump. But trust says jump anyway. Close your eyes and fall, not because you understand, not because you're certain, but because something deep in your bones tells you that you're not in charge. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. That's where surrender begins. When you finally drop the illusion, when you stop trying to control the outcome, the people, the future, and just say, I'm done pretending, lead me. And oh, it hurts. Don't let anyone tell you surrender is easy. It rips you apart, 'cause control is tied to ego, to pride, to that voice that says, I know best. So when you surrender, that voice gets quieter, weaker, until it's just a whisper in the corner, watching your faith take the wheel. And sometimes that faith takes you through storms, through silence, through places that don't make sense, but still you go. Not because you're fearless, but because you finally accepted that your control was never real to begin with. People like to think they're the authors of their own story, but if that were true, why does life keep rewriting the pages without asking first? Why do the plot twists come uninvited? Why does the chapter you thought would last forever get torn in half overnight? You're not the author. You never were. You're the character. You're the one learning, growing, breaking, healing. The pen isn't in your hand. It never was. And when you trust fully, you stop trying to snatch it back. But most people, they keep reaching, keep scribbling, keep editing what they don't like, until finally they hit the wall. The part of the story that makes no sense. The moment where all the logic falls apart. And that's where the real decision shows up. Do you keep fighting for control that was never yours? Or do you surrender to something bigger, something wiser, something that doesn't always explain itself but knows exactly what it's doing? Trusting fully isn't passive. It's not giving up. It's not floating along in la-la land. It's choosing, actively choosing to release your grip on the illusion. It's opening your hands and saying, even if this breaks me, even if I don't understand, I still believe. You're leading. That's not weakness. That's war. That's battle. That's handing over the crown and stepping into something far beyond your control, and somehow far more secure than anything you could have built yourself. Doubt screams louder when you're closest to breakthrough. That's not just a coincidence, that's strategy. That's the final play of fear before everything changes. It waits until the last second, right before the shift, right before the miracle, right before the door swings open. And then it starts yelling. Loud, unrelenting, sharp little voices in your head saying things like, this is stupid, you're not ready, turn back. And most people, they listen, not because it's true, but because it sounds familiar. Doubt doesn't walk in early, it waits. It lurks in the corner while you're dreaming, while you're planning, while you're preparing. But once you get close, once the heat rises and you can almost feel the change coming, that's when it pounces. It's the mind's last defense against growth, because deep down, your old self knows it can't survive what's coming next, and so it fights. It screams. It throws every ugly, anxious thought it can at you, in hopes that you'll crawl back into the familiar, back into the numb, back into the cage. It's like clockwork. Things finally start aligning, the vision gets clearer, the path opens up, and then, boom, here comes the inner chaos. Sleepless nights, random panic, overthinking. You start second-guessing what you know is right. You start looking for reasons to stop, to slow down, to delay. But it's not because the path changed. It's because you're too close to becoming someone your past can't manipulate anymore. And that makes doubt panic. See, breakthrough isn't quiet. It doesn't arrive gently. It shows up like a storm, and before it hits, everything around you starts shaking. You'll see relationships crack, plans get messy, emotions spiral, and in the middle of all that, doubt slides in and tries to convince you that all of this chaos means you're on the wrong path. But really, it's proof you're on the right one. People mistake resistance for red lights. They think discomfort means turn back. But resistance shows up when you're pushing against something heavy enough to matter. If it was easy, doubt wouldn't need to show up. But because this next step threatens everything that's kept you stuck, it unleashes the fool army. Every insecurity, every failure, every lie you told yourself at 2 a.m., they all come rushing in like some kind of final boss before the next level. And here's the kicker. Doubt doesn't come in sounding like a villain. No, it talks like a friend, a concerned voice. It says things like, "Are you sure this is God? What if you're wrong? What if this all falls apart? Sounds reasonable, right?" But that's the trap. Doubt wears the mask of logic. But real logic doesn't throw noise into your peace. Just because you're about to leap, that's not reason. That's sabotage. You think breakthrough is all glory and light and trumpet sounds? No. It's messy. It's terrifying. It's filled with moments where you have to walk forward while your mind begs you to turn around. It's full of tension, pressure, that unbearable heaviness that tells you something is about to break or be born. And in that tension, doubt does its dance. Because it knows if you take just one more step, everything changes. And change is terrifying. Even good change, even freedom, that's what nobody tells you. People think they're afraid of failure. No, they're afraid of becoming someone unrecognizable, someone fearless, someone unstoppable. And doubt banks on that fear. It whispers, "Who will you be if this actually works?" And that's the moment you start hesitating, not because the dream is too big, but because your old identity starts crumbling and you don't know what's on the other side. Do you ever wonder why everything feels hardest right before the breakthrough? That's not bad timing. That's the threshold. That's the spiritual battleground. That's where faith becomes a weapon, not a comfort. Where you have to make the choice, listen to the noise, or trust the knowing. Because deep down, you already know. You can feel it, that pull, that push, that fire that refuses to die, even when the doubt screams louder than ever. And the louder the doubt gets, the clearer the signal becomes. because doubt only screams when you're getting too close to truth, too close to purpose, too close to becoming who you actually are. Partial trust is just disguised fear. That's the trick most people play on themselves. They say they trust, oh yes, they say it with a straight face, hands folded, head tilted like they mean it, but behind the scenes, they're still calculating, still double-checking the exits, still holding the strings, just in case the whole trust in the Lord thing doesn't pan out. They don't call it fear, though. No. They call it wisdom, discernment, being realistic. But underneath all the fancy language, it's just fear wearing a nice suit and smiling politely. You can't trust halfway. That's like jumping off a cliff and keeping one foot on the ledge. It doesn't work. You either let go or you don't. And people don't want to hear that. They want options. They want a plan B. They want to follow God as long as it makes sense, as long as it feels safe, as long as He doesn't start asking for the things they're not ready to give up. They'll trust with their words, but not with their wallet. With their Sunday, but not with their Monday. With their prayers, but not their plans. And it's not because they're bad people. No, it's because fear is subtle. It doesn't kick the door down. It creeps in through the cracks. It whispers, sure, go ahead and trust, but keep your backup plan. Keep that relationship. Keep that job you hate just in case. Keep that mask, that habit, that lie you tell yourself so you don't have to leap. It tells you to trust just enough to look faithful, but not enough to lose control. People think fear looks like panic, like shaking hands and sleepless nights. But sometimes fear looks like being overly cautious, like stalling, like sitting still and calling it waiting on God, when really you're just too scared to move. You don't want to call it fear because fear makes you feel weak, so you rebrand it. You call it strategy. But deep down you know you're hedging your bets. You know you're holding something back. And here's where it gets messy. God doesn't work with half-trust. He doesn't build on shaky ground. He doesn't share the throne. So when you say, I trust you, but your actions say, I've still got the wheel, you create a gap between what you say and what you live. And that gap is where frustration festers. That's where prayers feel unanswered. That's where peace disappears. Because you're still trying to run the show, but calling it obedience. It's like asking for a miracle, then drafting a contingency plan in case He doesn't come through. You want the waters to part, but you're also packing a boat just in case. And it sounds smart, doesn't it? Sounds responsible. But faith was never supposed to make sense. That's the whole point. You don't need faith if you've got a guarantee. You don't need trust if you've still got the reins. You ever wonder why it feels like nothing's moving, why the door's still closed, the breakthrough still on pause? Maybe it's not because He's not listening. Maybe it's because you haven't fully let go. Maybe the thing holding you back isn't the enemy or the circumstance. It's the fear you haven't named yet. The one hiding under your logic. The one you dressed up as wisdom because it's easier to say, I'm being careful, than I'm afraid. And don't get it twisted. Fear doesn't mean you're faithless. It just means you're human. But if you don't confront it, it'll drive, it'll shape every decision you make. It'll lead you in circles while you call it God's timing. And deep down you'll know. You'll feel that tension between who you are and who you're called to be. That stretch, that itch, that gap that never goes away. That's what partial trust creates. Distance between your potential and your reality. And that distance, it only closes when you do the scary thing, the thing that makes no sense, the thing that puts your comfort on the line. That's where full trust lives. Not in safety, but in surrender. Not in knowing, but in letting go of the need to know. Because real trust isn't about being fearless. It's about showing faith even when fear is screaming. It's about showing up with empty hands and saying, I've got nothing left but belief, and that has to be enough.